Happy Saturday, ladies. I have been trying to get caught up on my grading today, so I apologize. I've been so far behind. I'm gradually making my way out of my hole of grading. So, as I was looking at your reflections and your units, I just had a few things and I just didn't want to type it up. I think it's easier for me to just talk it out. So, first of all, don't forget that to complete your in-class lesson reflection, you made a document for that. So the day that you taught your mini lesson, you needed to have done a lesson reflection. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do that. Also, don't forget that you need to have reflections for those professional activities that you've been taking part in. So see the syllabus if you want more information about those. And also, don't forget to keep up with Seesaw. I noticed that most of you are not keeping up with Twitter. A few of you are. I love to see that. I'm going to let that be your choice. Let's just focus on Seesaw and getting everyone involved every week in Seesaw. I also want you to experiment with the different things. Many of you are just choosing like the note, write a note. But I would really like you to experiment with making a video. Some of you have been doing some pictures with some captions, or you could do drawings. I want you to explore the different functions, okay? And so those of you who are doing Twitter, I think it will only benefit you to get yourself out there. And also just being involved professionally in that way. Another note that, speaking of social media, that I just want to make sure that you all have done, but you need to go through all of your social media accounts and make sure the things on there are appropriate. And when I say that, that means pictures of you, especially we've talked about alcohol, but it goes beyond that. Thinking about if parents of the students you are working with were to look you up on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, if they were to look you up, would a principal want to hire you? Would parents be okay with what is going on in those areas? So make sure you're getting that cleaned up. Your cooperating teachers are going to find you. People here at Doan are looking at your profiles, and so making sure that your things on social media are appropriate. As I was looking through the units, what I went and did is some of you might be panicking because I peeked in and you weren't quite ready. I have looked at what you have in your folder so far. And so it's very different for each of you what that is. What I would really like you to do, I think in retrospect, I know I had you put your dates on there, which I have them on my calendar, when you will have them all done. But in order to assist with this, so I'm not going in when you're not ready, I would really like you to email me when a phase is ready for me to look at from now on. So you will see what I've already looked at, and if I felt like I could give you a score at this time, I went ahead and did that. That does not mean that score stays in cement. This is a working document. If you want me to go back and look at your phase one for what you added, please tell me that, okay? Also, don't delete my comments. Okay, when you print this out or whatever, my comments won't be there. But I need those for when I'm going back into your document. Okay, so please do not delete those comments. You could type me a note if you've fixed it, or you could type me a note, that's fine. But please do not delete those comments. Speaking of, if I gave you a score in your rubric, I put a rubric, at least the first page of the rubric, in each of your Google folders, your reading unit folders, and you'll see it. I think I named it like Unit Rubric 1. And so then I highlighted where I thought you were in what I looked at. Some of you, I didn't feel like it was complete enough for me to even give you a score. So just wanted to let you know that that's how I will communicate that with you. And I will change that as I look at it again if you ask me to. The first thing I wanted to address with the units is the student descriptions. Some of you are being very detailed and some of you not so much at all. So I do want data as far as like letters, sounds. If you've done some data with high frequency words, things like that, that would be great information to have. If you've done any DRAs for your higher learners or text leveling, that would be great to have. But I want you to be careful with the words that you're using. So some of you are using words like smart or doesn't listen at all. I want you to tell me, make sure that it's impacting your instruction in reading, but instead I'm wondering if we should go with the format of strengths and growth areas. They can all be put in the same column, but just put a few strengths and then a few growth areas. So maybe for a kid who doesn't listen or whatever, you could put growth areas following instructions, because I want you to think about how would you communicate to colleagues or even parents. Like, would they be okay with the information that you wrote down and the way that you put it? Okay. And maybe strengths would be that they're hardworking or that they, listen and follow instructions. Maybe focus would be a growth area for some. So I just want you to think about that, and I really think I would like you to go with the whole strength and growth areas format. I'm sorry that I'm just now having that reflection, but I'm thinking I want it to be written in an appropriate manner, that it isn't overly negative, and I do want it to just be things that are going to impact your reading instruction. So therefore, if you have a student and you're putting that a growth area for them is focus, maybe you need to make sure you have proximity to them. Maybe they need to be sitting close to you in the carpet, things like that. There will be students that maybe there's no necessary growth areas. They're a pretty average student. They don't have there's not a lot that's going to impact your instruction aside from just those good teaching habits. That is fine. You don't have to have that. I'm not asking you to go and dig for things, but I am asking you to think. One of the things on the rubric is that I have to evaluate it. It says that the detailed description of classroom characteristics and specific characteristics of students that may affect learning explains how the characteristics were used to inform instruction and assessment. So not only are you giving me information, but you're thinking, how am I going to use this information to inform my instruction and potentially my assessment? So be thinking about that. Also, one item that I was thinking of, do you know the students who don't know the letter of the week? So if I is your letter, or seems like a lot of you have I or C, somebody had C. Do you know the students who do not know that letter going into that week? If you do, put that on there. The students that don't know I, make a column for that. That is important information for you to know. If all of your students already know I, maybe you don't put as much focus on just identifying the letter. You put more focus on identifying the sound in words. Okay? So that would be some really important information to know. And I know you've done a lot of letter assessments with students, and you could use from the beginning, and maybe, that's the best data that you have or the most recent. But that's going to be helpful for you. If you know that this group of 5 kiddos doesn't even know how to identify the letter, then you need to know that. That should inform your instruction, that you might doing some individual check-ins with them, or during guided reading, you're making sure you're putting some things in with that letter during their lesson. I hope that makes sense, but that would be some very important information to know. Also, in general, for the plans, I want you to think about closures. Okay? I'm going to I don't remember whose this was, but I'm going to use the example of some of you had like visualizing. I think several of you had that as one of your objectives. So you've done some modeling. You talk about the importance that good readers make pictures in their mind, and maybe you come up with an action. So good readers make pictures in their mind, and so you repeat that together, and then maybe at the end of that day, after you've modeled it and they've gotten to practice it, you have them tell their partner, great readers make pictures in their mind. Okay, something simple, but it just goes back to your objective for the day. Most of you are not doing that. Some of you have done a nice job at like certain points, like maybe with the letter, of doing closures, but there should be a quick closure with every piece of your lesson, just to go back and go to that teaching point and what do you want them to remember, and how might you know if they understand what you just talked to them about. Many of you are probably not seeing your teachers do that. That doesn't mean you can't do that, and it doesn't have to be very long. So I want you to think about that. I love how some of you have used in your daily plans, you've thought about actions to teach your students, and you've thought of ways to get them moving. I want to see more. If they're sitting on the carpet for 35 minutes, there should be movement involved. Absolutely. Make their learning active so you don't necessarily have to take a brain break because you've been so active. And that's really what we should go for, is being active in their learning instead of needing to take a break from it. So I just want you to keep those things in mind. One more thing is workstations. So I want you to think about your workstations, and are you going to be adding anything to any of the workstations? It doesn't have to be all of them, but are you going to be adding anything into the workstation that might relate to what you're talking about during the week, like relating to the letter or the sight word? Excuse me. I've been here since about 7:45 this morning. I am sleepy. So be thinking about that piece, and share that with me if you are up in the reading management section. If there are things that you do the same every single day, like a vocabulary routine or things like that, you can put that up in the reading routine section of phase 1, and then down below in your plan say C routine if it's something that you're frequently doing that's the same. So ladies, I hope things are going well. I know we're going to see each other on the 9th, and I'm looking forward to that. Make sure you're keeping up with your reflections, and I really love seeing what's going on in Seesaw. So please make it a point to share things that you think, not only just like frustrations or things like that. I want you to think about, how can you share new ideas? I know some of you have posted some cute pictures of some things that you've done. And I'm not limiting you to once a week. If you want to post more, I think we can only grow from that experience. So hope you have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.